Okay, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, done.
All right, let me start. So, hello everyone. Thank you for coming and joining. Let me say a few words about the conference first. Team-Driven Con is an online conference project that we decided to run in a new format. Well, at least it's new to us. 1 week intensives with daily Zoom sessions, a community in Slack, and our beautiful top experts. Team-Driven Con helps people to build a career in IT through acquiring new skills and knowledge from the experts and from networking and communication. We are organizing this event for the European participants for the first time, so we've decided to start small, 3-day meetup with 4 sessions only. All the sessions are recorded, so you can view them after the conference whenever you want. And a few words about the topic. The topic of this particular conference is the process of hiring of the engineering manager. We chose it because pretty much every EM will eventually have to search for a new position or just wants to interview somewhere, and it's just good to know in advance all the peculiarities of the process. We will provide a few viewpoints on the process. We already had a good session with the overview of the job market and salaries and everything from Korn Ferry, which is a huge HR consultancy company. It's international, huge, really huge. We have 2 public interview sessions, one done the day before yesterday, and one will be just now, and the group CV review session tomorrow. We are really grateful to all experts for taking the time to participate in the conference and for the brave volunteers who joined to become the interviewee. And we also want to introduce our main sponsor. It is Case.io. This is a company that makes a modern test management system for development and QA teams. Give it a try if you wish. And a few words about the rules. You can freely chat. We have code of conduct published on our website, but it's pretty simple. No harassment, no rude things to say, something like that. If you want to ask any questions, you can just use our Q&A section in Zoom in the main menu. We will try to answer them all at the end of the session if we have enough time. If we don't, we can always continue our conversation in our Team-Driven Con Slack, so don't forget to check it out. And now I want to introduce the speakers. Vidal, thank you for coming. Vidal works as an engineering manager in development productivity tools at LinkedIn. You all know LinkedIn, I think. Vidal is also a host of the popular Managers Club website and podcast, where you will find interviews with top engineering leaders and managers, and all links I will put in the show notes, so do check. Vidal has also written a book called The Software Engineering Manager Interview Guide, which you can buy on Amazon, and I do recommend. Vidal is also a founder of his own successful startup in the mobile space with over 25 employees and 0 outside investment. Unbelievable for me, but well, it's super cool. And Vasilii, thank you for coming and thank you for your courage. Vasilii has 9+ years of experience as an engineer. He worked more than 7 years in Yandex, which is a huge company in Russia, as a backend software engineer in search department. During this time, he also managed a small team of 3 software engineers, and he's been doing that for 4 years. And since this April, he works in TomTom as backend software engineer. Well, thank you, folks, for coming. Vidal, it's your time now.
Thank you so much. Glad to be here, and nice to meet you all. Good morning, Vasilii. So yeah, we'll run through this mock interview. I'll just say a couple words. I'll just do like kind of a general kind of leadership management interview that I do. I'm gonna ask questions I normally ask, like candidates in the United States normally would interview. So it may be somewhat different. I just want to be sensitive, European culture. I don't know, maybe they might ask different things. Don't know where you're applying, but I'll just ask my kind of American questions that I have generally. And, since it is a mock interview, are we going to stop along the way if people want to ask or explain why I'm asking certain things? I can do that. So I normally start, how's your day? How are you, Vasilii? How's it going?
I'm good. It's very good weather in Amsterdam, so I'm happy. Enjoy this warm weather today.
Nice.
How are you today?
I'm good. It's early morning here in California, and it's a nice day. I'll introduce myself. this is what I normally do in the interviews. I'm Vidal Graupera. I'm an engineering manager at LinkedIn. I manage a couple teams. We make developer productivity tools. I've been at LinkedIn 2.5 years. And, before that I was at Uber, Autodesk, Walmart Labs, and I've worked in the industry a long time. And well, maybe introduce yourself. Tell me a little bit. I have your resume. I looked it over and I'm going to ask some stuff, but make it briefly. Introduce yourself.
Yeah, I will try to do it short. I finished master's in applied maths and informatics in People Friendship University of Russia. And after this, I finished another advanced program from Yandex. It's called Yandex School of Data Analysis. And after this, I worked in Yandex for more than 7 years as a backend software engineer, then as a team lead, then as a lead software developer a bit in the end. In the end of this, I was burned out completely, so I decided to give up IT completely, and I went for another area of interest, and it was dancing and music. And I spent 4.5 years doing this. So if I talk about dancing, I performed, I taught classes in dance school, things like this. I gave private lessons to students. And last year, I realized that I want to be back in IT. I think I kind of healed from burnout. And I started to think and investigate what was the case of this burnout, and went to a psychotherapist to work with this. And after this, I realized reasons of this burnout, but it's a separate big topic. And I started to aim for the new goal. And I set this new goal and what steps I need to take for this. And after this, I worked as a data engineer for half a year. Is in one of the biggest telecom companies in Russia. And after this, I worked again half a year in Avito. And Avito is the biggest classified in Russia, and some people claim in the world. And I was happy there, but my girlfriend, she found her dream job in Amsterdam. So I decided to follow her instead of my dream job. And after this, I found the job in Amsterdam. Because I think it's more important to follow your girlfriend than your job. But maybe I'm wrong here. Yeah, so now I'm in Amsterdam, and I'm considering this interview as a game, as a challenge for myself, because I have a couple of areas of interest, and one of them is to become engineering manager. Yeah, so I decided right now to try this.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, no, that's interesting. You said you followed your girlfriend. I know a lot of people who've done that, so that is, definitely common. And thanks for explaining. I was going to ask about what happened between Yandex and your next company. So you took off to be a dance and music instructor, teacher. Were you a performer too? Just curious.
I was performing dancing, but not music. So in music, I'm amateur.
Okay.
But in dancing, I could say that I'm kind of professional. I dance Lindy Hop and tap dance. And with this, I even performed in Kremlin once.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I have recorded. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, I'm not going to ask any questions today in this interview about coding and design. I'm more interested in learning you about as an engineering leader. I'm going to go through, what you wrote on your resume, to kind of evaluate your work experience. So thanks for covering that part I was going to ask about. I'll ask about some of the other jobs here in a minute. I'll also ask you to self-evaluate your strengths and areas for improvements, how you prefer to work, among other things. And, these questions have no right or wrong answer. So just, tell me what you feel. So, I want to look at your resume a little bit. I want to ask because we don't have to talk about it too much, but you have this thing at TomTom. You've been there. Actually, I know TomTom. I worked at Uber, and we licensed data from TomTom for maps. I was in the Uber mapping team. But you've been there just half a year, it seems. Actually, less, right?
Yeah,
April
3 months
2022.
only. Yeah.
Yeah, 3 months. So could you just briefly touch on kind of what's going on? Why, it seems very short, to want to make a move. Could you just say a few words? What is going on?
It's not 100% sure that I want to move, actually. But we have one reason. You could read in the news that TomTom will lay off 500 of 2,000 people in the Maps organization, but they will announce it like in a couple of months. And in this situation, I think it's possible to look for another job even after this kind of short period, because I don't have any guarantees, and my right to live in the country depends on the work. Yeah, so it's if we touch this area, why I'm applying now. But another thing, it's I don't really apply now. I think that it's a mock interview and just experimenting.
I get it. Yeah, it's a mock interview, but I think that would be a question, right? I mean, stepping aside, like when I see a resume and someone is moving after only 3 months, I'd ask like, what is going on?
So my reason is this going on layoffs, and I don't have guarantees from my employer now.
Okay. I think that's a fine reason. Why did you? Well, I don't want to go too much detail because I do want to get more into your engineering management experience. But then the machine learning position you had at Avito, that was only like also 6 months.
Yeah.
So, why so short?
I see. It's something I experienced when I interviewed to one of the companies, and it's always a question like why it's so short, like why it's half a year, 3 months, and you change it. It's something very bad from recruiter point of view, and I understand this. It's understandable. So in Avito, it was the case because I decided to follow my girlfriend. So I already explained this a little bit. So decision was not professional, but personal. And from professional point of view, I liked Avito very much. And it was really my dream job. And I hoped to work many years there.
Okay. So then, this is before we get into Yandex, then also at this previous company was the name...
Mobile system, yeah?
Yeah. There was also like 6 months. What happened there?
Yeah, for this I have answer as well. Yeah, and I worked there because it was things I was promised to do in this company. They were not the same I was doing. Like what I was promised to do, reality became different. I think it's good to agree with these mistakes you make, like because people who interviewed me, they gone like 1 month after I went, and the new people, they like wanted completely different things from me to do. So yeah, and to be honest, I didn't like this company. Like I didn't see my future there because a lot of the things.
What is it that you didn't like? Because obviously you took the job there, something you expected to find, but then I'm just curious, what was it you didn't like?
I would say it's very slow moving. It's like very inert. And I like more companies where you can, when you can make things faster, when you can influence more, when you can, it's maybe sounds not very good for this company, but I hope they will not listen to this. But for me, it's very slow moving everything. Like, and I understand that it depends on the size of the company, because if you have startup, you like do everything very fast. If you have a very big company like Google, LinkedIn, I don't know, Amazon, then Twitter, something like this, then you need to go slower and more careful. But even in these constraints, I would say it was not inspiring me to work. It's like very unmotivating.
I see. Okay. Got it. All right. I want to talk with you more about Yandex. This is where you were an engineering manager. You said you have engineering management for 5 years there?
4 years.
Oh.
Smallest possible engineering manager position. But anyway, yeah, like small team, three software engineers.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so let's talk about that. So, could you tell me there at Yandex, well, tell me a little bit more about what you were hired to do, what your responsibilities there were.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I was part of the team, like big team, several dozens of people who were responsible for crawling the web and indexing this and preparing search bases for the search. So we had, I would say, two main processes in this big department, I would say. One is to crawl the whole internet and keep our internal knowledge of the internet as much up to date as possible, and yeah, like to have fresh content. And the second one is to select the best from this we have to actually show to the users that they can search on it. So it was both selection of this best part of internet and preparation in special kind of databases, internal format where you can effectively search for this. And it was a lot of infrastructure things around these two processes.
I see. So this sounds like a huge responsibility, right? Like the search quality and all that. I would almost think it'd be a much larger team would be responsible for this. So you had a team that did infrastructure for this?
Yeah, I was part of the infrastructure team, and we actually had a different team who was responsible for creating like machine learning factors for different models, like experimenting with this. How can we rank all the results? It's like big separate topic, and our part was only to crawl the internet. But even in crawling, it's some sophisticated methods what we need to crawl first and so on. And preparing search bases, like indexing all of the content. And actually, we helped other team who developed this search ranking features to calculate this. So I was helping like implement backend part of this intellectual work, I'd say. One of the it's not only my responsibility. I mean, it's not that I was responsible for the full thing, but I was an important part of it.
Okay. So on your resume it says you started as a software engineer there at Yandex, and then later you started in 2009, and then in 2011 you became team lead, which is like a manager, right? Like a manager of a small group. Could you tell me like how your transition to management? Why did you transition to management, or how did you transition from software engineer to manager there? Tell me a little bit about that story.
Yeah, it's very simple. I just worked very hard, and it's when you work hard and you do like your responsibilities very good, and you you got promotions one by one, and in the moment in Yandex, it was the only way to grow, like to have small team when you grow. It was no way for individual contributor to grow as individual contributor. Now, in many companies, you have like two ways. You can develop yourself as a manager, or you develop yourself individually. So it was not my choice.
I see. So yeah, I get that. Some companies, the only way to advance is you have to become a manager, as you're saying. That was the situation.
Yeah.
So you did very well as software engineer. You got promoted to be a manager. How many times are you promoted? Were you promoted after that?
It's a bit difficult for me to evaluate. I actually to be honest, I don't remember exactly. Maybe I was promoted once more, but
Okay.
it was because we had this change in the grading system, like what is the layout of the grades in the company. So I think after this, I was not as successful as before, to be honest. Yeah.
I see. So you were a very successful software engineer. You got promoted to manager, but when you were manager, you didn't get promoted anymore. You weren't as successful there. Is that what you're saying?
It's a good question. I was still successful, but maybe I was a bit tired of the work I was doing. Like for me, it became in some moment very monotonous, and I think at this moment I lost motivation to do this job, and I wouldn't relate my stop of the growth from the management position. I would say I was not careful enough about what I want actually myself and how I want to develop. So yeah, but it's true. It's just another thing that was happening in parallel. Like I was getting tired of the things I was doing, and I did not change it by myself. And I didn't ask for the help about this. So that was my problem at the moment.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you being very honest about that, and so I guess that maybe one of the reasons that later led you to go change fields, right? You changed fields for a while and went into dance and performance. I get it. So you kind of burned out after a while. You'd been there a long time in that group, is what I'm hearing. You lost motivation, then you went out.
Yes, and the whole team, they found motivation in other things. And a lot of people who I worked with, they changed to neighbor departments, for example. They changed a bit what they're doing and they found new interest. But I didn't succeed in this part. Yeah, I think I was too afraid of it in the moment. I was like feeling a lot of fear. And now I would certainly behave very differently than at this moment. But yeah, it was I was young and not very wise, I would say.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, this was like what, 10 years ago, right? 10 years. So we all grow and change, but at the time you weren't able to change departments, so I ended up you leaving. Well, I'm sorry to hear about that. Well, I do want to understand more. You were a manager there for 5 years, so what would you say during your time as manager, okay, was your biggest accomplishment?
I would say I have one story about this. I would say my biggest accomplishment that my report became my manager, and after this,
Oh, wow.
he had actually a very successful career both in Yandex and now in Google, like senior staff engineer, something like this. And yeah, I think it's I'm very proud of this person because yeah, like I was hiring him, then he became my manager, and then yeah, he had a very successful career. So it's kind of thing I think it's very nice. And if we're talking about people and if we are talking about technologies, I would say even when I was the manager, I was doing mostly things alone. I mean, like I was not like splitting the system for different components very well or something. I was able to do different. I was actually behaving like individual contributor, I would say, doing some difficult things, but not very good at delegating at the moment. Now for sure I would do it differently, but if we try to remember this time, it was the case.
Okay. Let me ask you about those things. So the first one, that's really great, right? You had someone who you hired and they like went on to this great career. But they became your manager like while you were still there or after you left. I mean, well,
Yeah. While
And what
while I was still there.
while you were there? Okay. What besides hiring the person, obviously you hired a great person, but besides hiring them, what was your did you contribute to their like rise? What was your contribution to that besides hiring them initially?
Um, you mean how much I actually helped this person to grow? You mean this, right?
Yeah, right, because you mentioned this is one of your proudest accomplishments, right? That this person like just grew like this, which is great. Uh, but what part did you have in it? Or was it just you hired this person, they just are awesome and they just,
So it's a good question. Yeah, like how much I influence this person, right? I would say in the
and
beginning.
what did you do? Go ahead, please tell me.
I would say I influenced a lot in the beginning, the first years, but afterwards it was mostly this person who grew very much, like working hard. And I don't say, so I would only include the hiring part and maybe first 2 years of work together into this. And then I just realize that he is able to do much more than I'm, and it's fine.
Did you have other members of your team that you were able to promote or who had this kind of career growth?
All of members of my team, they I would say they're successful now. They work in Meta and Google, something like this. And but I don't know. Maybe it's I wouldn't say that my role was too big here. I think I was a good manager from the personal point of view more than from professional, actually, at the moment. And now I would do it differently because Yandex was the first experience, and and I was young. And after this, when I looked at other jobs, like how they work, how they organize everything, like how relations works inside of the company, I have my opinion what is good and what is bad about this. Yes, and I would certainly do it differently. I would. We even didn't have one-on-ones with my reports, so it's how you can develop a lot of people if you even don't have one-on-ones. I don't know.
Yeah, it sounds like you didn't get. Did they give you any training at all when you became a manager? They said, "Hey, you're manager today."
Yeah, maybe it's partly fault of the company in the moment.
I see. Yeah, one-on-ones are super important. When I started as a manager, I didn't do them enough, and I've come to realize it's like one of the most important things you can do. So, yeah, sounds like some challenges there. And then you also mentioned, it's funny, I asked you what your biggest accomplishment was, but you mentioned to me that you spent a lot of time still as an IC, and that's normal, right? Someone who's an IC gets promoted to a manager, still doing stuff by themselves and not delegating enough.
Yeah.
So that's certainly a challenge you had. But did you mean to say that when I asked what your biggest accomplishment? What
technical one, you mean?
Yeah, just all right. Well, was your proudest moment as a manager during the 5 years you were there would be hiring and the first year or two of developing this person who grew to be like amazing, right? Is that fair?
That it's I would say it's from the personal point of view, it's most important. From the technical, I would choose another one.
Okay.
Another
Okay, give me one. What's another like highlight when you were manager there?
Okay, I have several such things. I can explain easy, understandable one. I will select one. Before, we had this team who crawled the internet and indexed everything, and we actually were not. If you crawl some page from Russia, for example, you can get like Russian text on it. If you download it from USA, you can get English content. And before we were not able to save actually multiple versions of content in our base and like display it in the search and so on. So I was the person who introduced this change. Our department and like the whole company, we were able to search, download, and prepare bases with different content for different countries. It's one big thing. Another, it's more internal one, like how we actually store the content and how we distributed what portion of the content for what country we store. It was like when I started, there was no solution for this. And I did things that allowed to configure how many content for different regions you store, this kind of thing. It was it allowed managers, for example, when they went to new countries. For example, they went to Kazakhstan and want to launch the search on the Kazakhstan pages. Just prepare, reserve this capacity for the Kazakhstan, download it in advance, prepare search bases, and it allowed more easily to launch new countries when project managers wanted this. And before this, it was like we had one formula that ranks all the documents and selects the best one. And if you use this formula to rank all the documents, then Kazakhstan ones will be in the bottom, and you'll never save it. So we had this kind of problem. And yeah.
So you came up with these like ideas, designs, or how?
I would say ideas came from managers, but design and implementation was fully my work.
I see. So I'm sorry, the design came from like other managers, like in the organization?
No, not like design, but like
the requirements?
Requirements, I would say, yeah, not design.
Okay. Just a couple of quick questions. What was the most enjoyable part of the job for you when you were engineering manager? What did you enjoy most about it?
It's an interesting question. I enjoyed different things. I enjoyed, I would split like technical and personal one again.
Mm-hmm.
And for personal, I enjoyed like hanging out with all the people because I really like our team. And we could stay to play for the poker, for example, in the evening or something like this. And it was very nice memories for me.
Okay, so hanging out and playing poker with them. Okay.
Yes, I think it's really important to do this kind of things, and not just work. Then you believe people more and like more easily communicate. And from technical point, like implementing all of these things and seeing results, like I would say it's enjoyable when you finish the big things that company was not able to do before, but now can do.
I see. What were the least enjoyable parts? What did you not like about being a manager?
Sometimes you have some tickets, like tasks you need to do, but nobody wants to do. But you still need to delegate. You still need to delegate this to someone, or maybe do something by yourself. And this kind of things when you need to do something, but it's not enjoyable. It's I would say not enjoyable part. And another thing, some people are difficult to communicate with, and we had one person who is difficult to communicate with, and I would say when this person is angry, it's it's very challenging to communicate with this person. Yeah, but I did it anyway. But yeah.
Let's talk a little bit more about that. So, with this person on your team?
No, it's not in my team. It's like it's a person like in some places you have a person who like one boss person who if you lose this person you not able to maintain system, for example, and it's very bad when you have this kind of thing, and we all understood this. But anyway, we had this person who worked like from the beginning of the times. Yes, and
he was difficult. This person was difficult to talk to. He got very angry, I think you said. Okay. But it affected your team that this system wasn't working correctly. And so you had to talk to them?
No, not like this. He was part of the bigger, maybe I'm not clear. Yeah.
Okay, we don't need the details of that, but just like, okay, so when you found someone in your organization who's difficult to talk, sometimes we find people that they're difficult, they're argumentative, they're angry, they have some kind of problem. What was your approach? How did you deal with that, this difficult person?
Yeah, I would say it's changed over time because in the moment of working Yandex, I would just close in myself, I think mostly, and it was difficult for me to go and solve this problem. So I wouldn't say I was successful in this part in working Yandex, but after my burnout period, when I taught Tencent a lot, like I had every week I had a lot of things and I communicated with a lot of people. I think actually when I took a break from the IT and I think I dropped down my level in this. Okay. But because of not doing anything and technology always go forward and you're not together. But I think I developed very much my soft skills in this moment. And actually I had a dance partner, we argued a lot and very emotionally sometimes. And yeah, it's this kind of, but I learned how to deal with emotions, how to deal with difficult situations, not in this area of IT, but in different one. And after this, like in my 3 last jobs I work in, it's much easier to communicate, and all people admire that I'm a very good communicator now. But so now I don't have problems to talk with people who don't like something or they're emotional or something like this. I don't have this problem anymore. But in Yandex, I was not that kind of person yet.
I see. Okay. Yeah, you've talked that you've grown a lot, apparently. Let me ask one more question, then I'll change to something else. I mean, we all make mistakes. What would you say was your? Did you make any mistakes or things you would have done over differently if you had this job again at Yandex?
Of course, we all make mistakes, and it's like. If you don't make mistakes, I would say if you don't make mistakes, you don't try to do anything like. Yeah, but if I try to think what I would do completely differently, it depends. Like if I would be myself, I would completely differently do everything. But if I look backward, like the person who I was, I would say I stopped my development at some moment. And what I would do differently, if I could advise myself, I would advise to continue develop myself more than I was doing. And it's not only about technology, it's about communication skills, people, psychology, and everything.
Yeah, there's a lot to that. Okay. Well, since you say you've learned a lot, and you've grown a lot. So I'm going to give you like a small problem. It's not necessarily a technical problem, but I'd like to see like how, if you were a manager now, how you would approach it. Okay, let us say that I mean you're a backend engineer, so let's say that you were hired at a company, and we had some a service, and it's very useful. Like we develop a service, and it's really useful service. Wow, it's really great. And so now we want to sell access to this service, right? It's maybe it's a mapping service, like you're working at TomTom. Maybe it's some machine learning service that calculates something. The details aren't that important, but you have a service. We want to make it public. We want to sell access to it. Maybe we put a license server of some kind. We want to do that. And so I go to you and say, hey, so I have this job for you. I'm at this company. I have this service. And we want to control. We want to sell. Access to it, right? We want to commercialize it. And I give you a small engineering team. What would be your approach to this?
And what role I'm playing in this situation?
You're the engineering manager. I make you the engineering manager. And so, tell me, for example, how would you figure out where to start? What would you need? How would you organize the work? Like, give me some thoughts. I'm giving you a very vague problem, but, let's say.
Yeah, I can understand what you mean. First things I would do, I would go to product managers, product owners, and discuss. I think this kind of responsibility must come from a product side first, not from engineering side. Of course, we can suggest something, but I would say I have this idea. What do you think about this? And agree with product owners first about this.
Okay, so you're a product manager. So.
Yeah, another idea I would, we want to sell something. If you want to sell something, you need to do market research first, if it's actually needed to someone to sell it, or it's just your imagination about this. So, but I would ask to do this and delegate this to product managers to both define it.
Let's say that there is a real demand for this service. There's a huge demand for the service. Maybe we've been offering it for free, and we have a lot of people already using it, but now we can no longer offer it for free. We want to start charging for the service. Okay. And the product managers tell you, yeah, we want to offer pay per use. Maybe you get you buy 1,000 API calls or lifetime of API calls or API calls per month or per year. Use some kind of requirement like this. But there's millions and millions of people using this service. It's the greatest thing ever.
So if you already agreed that things is needed. And we want to switch from product side to technical side, because I think it's important to start from product side, because if you don't, if you're doing things that nobody needs, why would you do this at all?
Right.
Yeah. So if you have this as an input, I think we need to do a lot of things here. But the first one, we need to actually check if we are able to serve it as we want, like if it's actually will handle all the load people will give us, how stable it from different, and by stable I mean from different perspectives. We need to check how it's scalable, how it's does it have kind of backups, and what can go wrong with this. I would first check all of this, and for this I think it's kind of very thoughtful analysis we need to do, like what can go wrong, what can go wrong, because if you are starting to deal with money, it's already a separate topic and big one. But for example, let's don't think about money for now, because I think it's big thing to discuss separately. if you just want to be sure that it works for big amount of people, you need to
So you'd be interested in the scalability. Okay. So how would you're the engineering manager, right? Like, okay, this service super popular. It's amazing. Okay. How are you gonna, how are you gonna check these concerns about scalability?
Yeah, I will just give it as much load as I can, actually, in a safe environment, and I will draw the kind of map what our system looks like, and and what and try to find bottlenecks of it, like what and what is like throughput of every part of the system, and is it enough or not? Yeah, and if some component, for example, and how reliable every part of the system. If something from this go wrong, I will check all of these parts. Yeah,
Okay.
and if we did this, we already can answer that we can serve this amount of requests, for example, this amount
Okay.
of clients. If something go wrong, we can like restore it or switch to alternatives or something like this. Yeah, I would say when I think about it more, I would consider all use cases we have, like at least all
Okay.
popular ones, and do it for every use case separately. Yeah, I would do it like this.
Okay. What else? Okay. So you evaluate the scalability and you come up with this. Then what do you do? Okay.
Then I would actually try to scale it, because we can perform all of this analysis, but it cannot work in practice. So I would just try to increase it twice, fourth, 10 times, something like this, and just experiment it in practice. I would disable all of the parts and check if what we think will work, it actually works like this. Yeah, and I think it will be already it will already allow us to find a lot of things that's going wrong.
All right. Is there anything else you would do? Like the engineers on your team, right? Like what are they doing while you're doing all this?
Yeah,
I've given you a team of 3 or 4 engineers. What are they doing?
yeah, but when I tell that I will do this, I mean the whole team. Of course, we can split all of these things.
Okay.
I mean, we as a team, the whole team. Yeah,
Okay.
They would help with this.
Okay. And how would you organize them to help with this? How would you? It's one thing to say that they would help with this, but how would you do that? You're the manager, so tell me. I give you a team of 3 or 4 people. What would you do?
I would ask these people what's most interesting from these things for them, because I think people are more effective when they do what they like to do, and I would try to assign what they like in this like set of the tasks we need to do first. Yeah, and if it's the case, then everyone is happy. They chose something, and we have all the jobs assigned. If it's not the case, then we need to somehow split it. I don't know. If I have the rights, I will try to not to give all of this not interesting things to one person, just to equally distribute it and do something by myself as well.
Oh, so okay, so you care a lot about that the people get this. So if there's something that nobody wanted to do, you would do it?
Yes, it's what I'm doing in my current job, because I have things that all people, they like looking at it and it's to communicate with other department in Poland. We don't want to do this. Yes, so I think I would do this. Yeah, I would. I think it's important to do something about things, not just to keep it you need to either do it or like decline to do it, not to keep it in the intermediate state. And I think a lot of a lot of things I see in practice, people just don't want to decide something, and they just delay this, or they have infinite backlog of things, or something like this. And yeah, just agree that it was a mistake to create these tasks, for example.
I see. I see. Okay. Anything else you would do in this project?
What we can do?
Yeah, go ahead.
So what again? What I would do? I would try to do something like not officially deployed first, but try to come up with some steps to have some test groups before, like closed invitation, something like this. Yeah, maybe like the way GitHub did it recently with Copilot things, like they.
Oh, like a beta program, some testers. You want to get some testers.
Yeah, you can sell it not like the testers, but you have a new bright shiny features, and it's only by invitations you can choose it. Something like this. It's not necessarily like truly bad testers.
Got it. Okay. Well, we have a couple minutes left. I want to ask you what I want to ask you one more question, and then I want to leave time for you to ask me any questions you might have. So, is there any time you did something like this in your career? Or any time you actually, created something new like this? Or what's the closest thing you've done to kind of what I've described here, this scenario I gave you?
So what you described, the scenario, it's more about how to, from some internal development, how to build a product and how to start to use it like from outside of your company, something like this. I see it. I would say I don't have this kind of experience exactly like this. It was mostly some separate features of already existing product. So I would say I have lack of this kind of experience.
Okay. Yeah, so your experience may have been like working on existing product, like here's this product, add some feature, not like stand up a new product.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. I tried to remember it, but yeah, not now. I have some ideas to do this for myself, but it's
okay.
Nothing I can actually share now.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, you just haven't had that opportunity yet. That's fine. Yeah. So here we're almost at whatever, almost an hour. Usually interviews that we run are 45 minutes to an hour. So at this point, normally I would say, do you have any questions? Like I always like to take questions. So pretend this is like a real job interview. Like, are there any questions you would have for me?
Yeah, for the real job, it depends on what company what position I'm aiming for, because it's very, I would say, specific. But if I want to ask something like general.
Yeah, so general, like it's an engineering manager job, right? So at the end, so tell me, what would you ask?
I would ask, do you have a clear product strategy for next year, for example? And what is your plans as a company to develop what products?
Wait, could you repeat the question? Sorry, I didn't quite understand the question. What's your question?
Do you have a product strategy for nearest year, for 5 years?
Oh, okay. Do we have a product strategy for next 5 years?
Yeah, at least for 1 year.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's the first one. The second, I would ask what kind of engineering culture you have inside of the company. Do you have your own kind of platform? What practices you use in your company?
I see.
Is
Okay.
it like team specific, unit specific, or it's common for the whole company? Something like this. It's very interesting to know. Yeah. What else? Yeah. And the other question, it's like common ones. If I would ask more specifically, I have some areas of interest, and I would dig deep into this, like what's interesting for me. If you have this, actually, because I have some my own priorities in the job, so I would ask this.
Oh, okay. Oh, actually, no, I forgot to ask a couple more if we have time. If not, we can stop here. But we have time. There's another
We have
question. Should I read it?
It's only up to you guys.
Okay, I can stay. I can say a little more. So, all right. So we talked about you want to go back into engineering, management. Okay, Vasily. So, could you tell me, like, what would be your ideal job then? Like, you're looking to go back into engineering,
Mhm.
management. Like, what would you looking for? Like, what would be the ideal position for you?
Yeah, I was thinking about this, and it changes over time.
Okay.
For now, I have 4 main areas of interest, and my
Okay.
ideal job is when I have all 4 of them. So
Okay. So what are they?
the first one, I want to have some backend part of it. So I want it to deal somehow with backend software engineering. Second
Okay.
one, I want to have some applied machine learning in this. So it could be some backend for machine learning, for example. It's already good combination.
Okay.
The third one is it's just the word, but I have some idea in mind about infrastructure. I think it's good when you can not only develop something, but maybe design something more bigger than just some, for example,
Okay.
not only develop some backend application for machine learning, for example, for some,
Okay.
I don't know, finding a markup of the road in the images, something like this. But actually have when you're responsible for building the whole infrastructure of this scalable one, and with all the
Okay.
different.
Okay. Oops, that's my alarm. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, and the
I'm here.
first one is about management. So if I want to manage some people, and it's not because I like to control people or something like this. It's because I think you can do more with a team than you can do alone. Because one software engineer, even very like distinguished engineer, can't do all the things. He needs team to do something more, to influence more of the things you're doing, like to do more complicated things. And I think it can be done only with management part of it. You need team to do this. So my ideal job is a combination of these 4. Yeah, I could say something like, if I look in the future and I just dream about, like director of machine learning platform somewhere. It's a kind of things that has all of this. You manage, you have infrastructure, you have machine learning, you have backend. So, but it's just an idea. It can change because half a year ago I had a bit different things, and of course I can't be director of AI now, but in some future, like in 5 years, why not?
I think that's a great goal. Yeah, in the future. Okay, those I think those are some some good questions, answers. I'm happy to, Vitaly, if you want me to like go over
Yes,
my thoughts on some of the answers.
Would be good to provide feedback. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I'll give you some feedback. So I'll start. Let's see. Maybe I'll just go here in somewhat reverse order. So I have notes here. So I would say that what makes the job ideal. I was worried you weren't going to mention anything about management because the first three things you mentioned were all technical. I think a lot of the things you mentioned were technical. Well, let me first start off. Like, I think I really appreciate you. You felt to me very honest. Everything you said. You seemed like you were very honest. You weren't like hiding stuff. I mean, you said some things which many people wouldn't say or admit, right? So I thought that was very honest. I like that. I don't know if that'll work to get a job at some companies. It's tough, but I do appreciate your honesty, right? So I will say that. And you also seem you're very, I can say, you're very into the technology and the engineering part of it. A lot of your answers seem to be very much around the tech. And while that's good, obviously it's important as your manager. I would kind of like to have seen the answers be a little bit more around the managerial aspects, since you are applying for a managerial position. So, for example, the last answer, right? I said the four things. The first three you immediately said had to be you wanted back end, applied machine learning, and infrastructure. Okay, and the last one was management. You gave a little bit of answer there. So,
but priorities.
maybe, right? You're. Go ahead.
No, I just agree with you that if I apply for engineering manager, it should go first and not last.
Yeah, it should have been the first one, right? Exactly. I think so there's that. I didn't go into like the questions you asked, do you have a roadmap? What's the engineering culture? I think those are okay questions, you know. Maybe a question you would have I would have asked something around the lines of what you're expecting, of me to succeed, as an engineering leader, like what exactly are looking for there.
Yeah.
If I was going to be successful in this role, what would I need to do? Things like that. Maybe a little bit more about the
expectations.
Asking the hiring the expectations of the job. I'm going to ask a little bit more about the expectations of the job than just the product strategy. So there was that. Let's see. Then going back in the history. So I asked you about this hypothetical team that, I gave you this job. I have this very popular service. I want you to, manage this project for me. And so, I like that you started, with talking to the product manager, customer. I think that's important. I would have liked to see, again, a little more managerial stuff. Like, okay, I would have like started with like my team, or gone to my team and said, okay, guys, what are we going to do here? What are your thoughts? Maybe I assign one engineer to do this part, then assign another engineer to look at that part. Maybe we write an RFC. I don't know if you need that kind of, but you know what I'm saying? Like, it felt like you started a bit like, I'm going to look at the scalability and I'm going to figure this part out. And then I think later one point I asked you, when you say, what is the rest of the team doing? And then you said, oh, well, yeah, I would have them do it. But I think it would have started more like, I'm going to assign these, I'm going to, figure this part out, have them work on it. You're going to organize it, come up with a plan. So it's like, I'm going to come up with a plan. First, you say, okay, I'm going to come up with a plan. I'm going to break it down, going to assign these items out like that. So I think that would have been a much stronger answer.
Yeah, I agree.
In that, I get how you want to connect with your engineers, right? And all that. I didn't love so much. So I agree with you. I try to assign engineers work that they like as much as possible, right? Because if you assign someone that wants to do and is interested, they're going to do a better job. But I didn't really love the fact if there's something that someone didn't want to do, then you would do it. Okay? Like, sometimes you just need to like, okay, sorry, I didn't love that part. So let's see. Things that you didn't like about engineering manager. You mentioned the tickets, the things that people didn't want to do or that you wanted not to do. Oh, could have been, it seemed a little bit like work related, like maybe it could have been maybe some more people issues, like things, again, in the room, someone is not performing well and I have to like give them hard feedback, you know? I have to lay people off. I have to fire someone. I have to make some kind of really tough management decisions. And those things are not very happy things for managers to do. That would maybe have been something more I was expecting to hear. I would have liked to hear. Let's see, other things we talked about. I think you were very honest about your team. Like you didn't get, it sounds like you didn't really get any training, right? The fact you didn't do one-on-ones with your team, not good. That you admitted it, and all that. So interesting, the achievement you listed. I think it's great that this person you hired like was amazing, right? And had a lot of impact. But I was trying to ask more about, how you develop and grow the people on your team, because that's something that engineering managers do. And I didn't get like a strong feeling that you helped them a lot in this development. Like maybe you just made it a really good hire, which is good. But were you really good at developing them?
Yeah,
I mean,
honest answer is of course no, because I was not. I was not good at the moment. So
right. So I think that's and again, you were very, very honest, and you said how you kind of had burned out there, and so you kind of lost motivation. It was good that you worked very hard. You were a software engineer. You got promoted to be a manager, right? Last times I ask people why they become managers, like, well, it kind of had to. Not the greatest answer there. Like, maybe you were interested in it, you wanted to lead people, but then the fact you lost motivation, got burned out, that obviously is not a positive thing to hear.
yeah. For this, I have
So
better examples, but because we were focused more on this Yandex part, it's not like freshest examples. So if we would talk more about like recent jobs, I have much better examples of everything.
yeah, so it would have been great to hear that you had been promoted as an engineering manager, that you were successful as an engineering manager, obviously. So when I go through the career history, I'm kind of looking to see, so that's great. He was at this role, then he got promoted, then he took a bigger role and a bigger role. But it sounded like you got promoted, and then it kind of stopped there, and actually didn't go well in some cases. So I think you have, again, I really appreciate your honesty. Like it's really great. But I think there's some challenges in your career history, because you do have these 3 short jobs at the beginning, right? And that's going to draw some attention. You're going to have a good answer for those. I mean, with all due respect, I probably wouldn't rate this higher based on the performance of this interview, because there's many questions, there. But again, I do appreciate your honesty, and I hope this exercise was helpful to you.
I was not expecting that I will be hired in LinkedIn or something. It was just idea to. I think it's the best way to actually understand what you need, trying to do something. And for me, I think it's a very good experience. And yeah, some of these answers I kind of had in my head, but when you say this explicitly, it's much more clear. And I agree with this. If I would hire someone, I wouldn't do this as well, based on the same ideas. But yeah, it's just exercise, as you said.
Yeah, it's an exercise. So, these are some things you need to work on. I'd work on some of these answers, more about the engineering manager part, a little bit less the technical part, maybe. I don't know if you have an opportunity I know there's difficulties at TomTom. Maybe if you can actually become an engineering manager there again, then you'd have another engineering manager story to tell,
Yeah, that's my plan, actually. I already talk with everyone about it. So it's my plan to become this.
Yeah. So cool. I mean, I don't really have much else unless, I mean, if there's any questions, happy to take questions or go back on and go back to talk about any more of these
I would
questions.
like to thank both you, Vidal, and Vasilii. Vidal for extensive interview, and Vasilii for your courage, and not only honesty but courage as well. It always takes so much courage to go to get interviewed to a place where you think you might not be a good fit, where you have some doubts, right? So it's very hard. Vidal, I have a question for you. Do you
Yes.
know if junior or middle, let's say, engineering managers are even a higher, considered a higher from the outside, or just seniors?
Yeah, no, we do hire, and at other companies I've worked at, we'll hire engineering managers from the outside, but usually we like to see at least maybe like 2 years experience as an engineering manager. So you have this, Vasilii has this because he was an engineering manager at Yandex. Now, albeit it was a very small team, but I think you do meet that. I think the challenge with it, to be honest, it was a long time ago, right? And there's a lot of other things that have happened since then. And as you're very honest to admit, Vasilii, like there were some challenges there, right? With it. So it's not the most positive story in some ways, you know? So I think that would be a challenge. But I think, yeah, the minimum you would, you know, yeah, meet the requirement to interview. But I think you need to have a good story for some of these things.
Right. Do you know, Vidal, is if coding and system design and algorithmic questions are being asked when engineering managers are being interviewed? It's a normal thing.
Yes, a lot of companies, not every company, but I would say a lot of companies ask them. And Vasilii, you would probably be interviewing clearly for a line manager, you know, position, you know, entry-level engineering managers. So it's even more likely there. I mean, it's higher level. You know, if you get to be director of machine learning someday, they might not ask any coding questions. But frontline engineering manager, most companies would ask question. So there you would probably do well. I assume, you know, you're back an engineer, you have a lot of coding experience, but you would be asked a bunch of these leadership management questions, which I think you'd need to work on that story.
Vidal, what resources do you recommend for people? Well, except from your book, which we will add to show notes, would you recommend for people to study before applying to EM position?
Well, that's a good question. There are some other books too. I'm trying to remember them that people have written. You know, general interviewing. You know, answering behavioral questions. There is the, you know, system. You know, if you're interviewing for engineering managers, there's going to be system design question. Probably, you know, I didn't do that. There'd be like an engineer would come and ask you a system design question. I assume you'd probably do well in that. You might get a coding question. But I would think maybe for you, there's a lot of books, general books. I have lists on my website too of just general books on engineering leadership and management. So you might read some of those. There's some famous ones, you know, like The Manager's Path, for example. A lot of people recommend this. Managing the Unmanageable is written by a friend of mine. Talks about being an engineering manager. Whatever, Managing Humans. I have a list on my site I can share with you. Some very popular books of what it's like to be an engineering manager. And they'll talk about things like the importance of one-on-ones and all this stuff, which I think would be good for you to review. So then when you tell these stories, you can talk about that, or you can say, yeah, maybe I didn't do that, but now I've read that's really important and this is how I would do it. So I would do some of that.
Yeah, and we have some extra question from the audience. It's regarding language and language skills. And I think many people can relate to that if they're willing to relocate to some English-speaking countries. So how do you think, and how crucial is, well, I can say in other words, do you think that Vasilii's level of speaking English is sufficient for engineering management position? Can we kind of set a baseline?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I can speak that. Actually, yes, I think his level of English was definitely good enough. And I gotta say, I admire it because I know English is not your first language, right? And English is a very hard language, I feel, to learn. It's not easy. So I don't speak any Russian. So I do appreciate
Right.
that you have learned English. And yeah, no, I could understand everything he said. So
But
his
would
level of English was
it
fine.
be any form of impediment to the team composed of different nationalities? What do you think? I'm just asking in terms of, should we advise people to improve their language before they relocate or during the relocation process? Or is it just all right if you're understood?
Well, no, I think the better, the better, because see, engineering manager operates in the realm of people and talking to people. So the better communication you have, the better it's going to be. So yeah, Vasili's level of English is definitely good enough that he can be understood and do the job. But yeah, being better at it, better presenter, better speaker, cannot hurt, can only help. So I would say becoming really good at it. And it's a challenge, for people who English is not the first language. Also writing English, because engineers have to write a lot. That's also a challenge.
Yeah. I always recommend people to try do blog posting for quite a while, for like at least a year. So you're just gonna help you formulate your thoughts better.
Yeah, I mean, there's two things there. One, yes, I think it helps you formulate your thoughts, and that's important in engineering. To think clearly, be able to explain things clearly, but also just the general mastery of the English language, because there's a lot of written documents, things you have to write and read and speak. That I mean, I have to tell you, I mean, I admire you because it's hard. Like my parents came to the United States, they didn't really speak English. You guys are learning it. It's I'm lucky. I was born here, so I just learned it growing up here. But it's not easy. It's not easy.
But yeah, it's a good advice for people then to try to improve. As far as I understood, what I thought was that engineers are just tolerated as much as possible. Like if you can be barely understood, that's all right. But with engineering managers, it's harder.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, well, we also have a lot of people in the United States. I don't know there, but here we have a lot of people from other countries, right? People from Asia, Europe, all kind of places, Latin America. So we're kind of used to people who English is not the first language. But still, the better you can communicate and explain, right? The better, because you need to convince people. You need to do stuff.
Thank you. That's a good advice.
Yeah.
I think that's it, right, Eugen? We have
any other questions?
No, I think we don't have any more questions from the audience, so I think we can wrap it up.
Yeah.
Thank you again.
Thank you so much. I want to say a few words. Tomorrow we have a new session, which is going to be a group CV review. It is 7 p.m. GMT +2, but the event for the audience is already being added to the calendar. So the link to this record of this session will be in discussions channel in Slack. So if you like the session, please give us feedback in Slack, and don't hesitate to tell about us to anyone else, to your friends and colleagues and everyone. And thank you, folks.
Vidal, thank you for your time, Vidal.
You're great.
My pleasure. Thanks for doing the exercise, and I hope it was helpful.
Yeah, I'm sure it will be helpful for the audience. I'm 100% sure. We've covered a lot. Thank you.
Oh, and feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn if you want to connect with me. And if you want to.
We'll do.
Very good. All right, guys, take care.
Have a good evening. Have a good day, Vidal.
Bye-bye.
Bye.